Morning, sunshine. This is Youngstown Talk Radio.
Morning.
Welcome, everybody. Good morning and happy Monday.
Yeah.
First crack at it because I got a bunch of shit to talk about.
I'm just going to say, speaking of sunshine, beautiful morning this morning. Did you get a chance to appreciate it?
I did.
I love fall because you have the sun coming up and the sky is blue and the trees are all colorful and the grass is really green and there's a cool breeze. And it was just.
I love it because it signifies death.
Well, yeah,
things
that
die
like
so that they can be renewed, and we wipe away the things that shouldn't exist and bring back spring's new presentation.
Yeah, it is. I had a thought like that over the weekend because when I was driving Saturday, we drove to Canton. So like on the way to Canton, like all this pretty foliage, and went over Lake Milton, and that looked beautiful. And I have a relative that has said the same. They have said they hate fall because everything's dying.
Yes.
It feels like death to them.
Death
and I'm like,
amazing.
What a weird way to look at it. But I get it. The leaves are dying.
Death. Part of natural deal is that things have to go away in order for new things to come back.
But how interesting that nature is one of those things where the death is beautiful. And I think we know it doesn't feel permanent. Like we know those trees will produce again and then fall again and produce again.
It's perspective. So in 100 years, there will be someone who's not you. You'll be long dead, and somebody will be carrying the human race forward, probably better than you, probably more skillful than you, probably with more perspectives than you.
I really love this, where this is going.
But no, like think about it. Do you feel bad that the leaves on the tree get to die and move away, only to be replaced by better leaves the next year? It's a way of looking at it.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's just like this continuous circle. It doesn't have to be sad.
It has to be very happy that life continues on through the cycle of death.
Yeah, and it's beautiful.
It's beautiful death.
When done ideally, I guess. You know,
ideally.
Yeah, like if you look at it in the perspective of like human beings, do you not feel better about someone that aged very well? They got very, very old, completely satisfied with their life, content, and they die away peacefully, surrounded by family. And it's like,
it depends.
This is just how it's meant to go.
What if they didn't participate in the value of human beings? What if they didn't do anything?
That's what I'm saying is, if there is a death that just progressed in a very ideal way versus not, versus horrific, versus tragic, versus loneliness, whatever.
All of them have purpose. Sometimes that tragedy is
But tell me
necessary.
You don't feel differently. Do you feel differently if a 100-year-old person surrounded by family versus...
I romance the contribution of people to the machine. If I sat in that chair and you were like, hey, look, Joe's in that chair, 100 years old. What did he do? Lived, exchanged carbon dioxide for oxygen, converted water to urine, created some thermal output. That's all he really did. Okay. And I'm like, okay, well, that meat suit could have done a whole lot more. So it's relative.
Or someone sort of cut down in their prime, but just was very influential, participated in major things, caused change.
But it's sort of like the connective tissue, the butterfly effect forward. Like that certain things have to happen and create so many changes, positive and negative, right? But there could be a contribution. They never willingly did anything, but because they exited the way they did, they created ripple effects in other people and in culture and whatever. So it all depends on your camera angle.
Yeah, you can take something that seems like it was all such a shame, but who knows what could come from that.
That's exactly right.
I've seen instances of that.
Yeah. Even like you can take something would be the most tragic part. And if let's just say a 5-day-old infant dies, right? Mm-hmm. And you're looking at it from the potential that life had to be able to make change, and they were robbed of that. And we were all robbed of what they could have been. But then the ripples of that death changed the people around them. And you don't know, the God's plan of thing is that, what and that's why time travel movies excite me so much, right? because of the butterfly effect ripples of you make one little change and you think that you execute Hitler and you did the world when you go back is just going to be this awesome place. But all of the good things that happened because of Hitler now are no longer part of the storyline. And you might come back and it's so much more worse because Hitler was there and there was a guy that was worse than him that would have been there and it would have been so much worse. Or because so many people were inspired by the life of Hitler that they become better and they drilled into certain things and a whole different experience.
Yeah, I heard somebody say recently that if you think about it and if you look back, almost everything you can think of that was either a breakthrough moment or something great came from something, there was always something difficult before it. There was always maybe not full-blown like tragedy, but there was pushback, there was an obstacle, there was something bad that happened, there was friction before the really great thing. And I'm like, that got me thinking. I said, yep, I can picture in my life. This really sucked, but it gave me this.
All right. So I give you a time machine. You can go back 20 years. Do you change anything or you're like, I'll pass on it?
I think I would pass. I don't think I would change anything.
Yep. I'm with you. So many people would take that and think they're going to take an element that was inconvenient or just what they feel is disruptive and what happened. But then everything is going to be different from that.
I literally I can go through my brain and think of like top 3 to 5 what I would have thought was the worst things I could have faced. To some people might be minimal, but to me, it was a life-changing, impactful, sucky situation. And I can think directly what I have to this day that is thriving that would not have been if that didn't happen. Multiple.
Right. Just prove that death is part of the math.
Death is a part of life.
Death is beautiful.
It is beautiful. Especially if you're a tree. Just saying.
Unless you are the tree.
Oh, poor tree.
All right, let's talk about No Kings over the weekend. Did you go out and celebrate No Kings Day?
Sure didn't. Did not. Was that Saturday?
It was Saturday.
Yeah, I had other things going on Saturday. And I'll be quite honest, I don't understand it.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
I do understand it.
Okay, well, you can explain it to me. I don't understand the No Kings.
Part of our culture is we have the ability to air our grievances legally, peacefully, and let everybody know that we're displeased.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when done correctly, which I think the No Kings rally did very well, they showed their displeasure, they made their signs, they did the chants, and they didn't get in anyone else's way.
No violence.
They just did their thing and they let their voices be heard. Right. Now, that to me, that's a beautiful thing, but it is also a very dangerous thing. Okay. It's very dangerous. There is a good bit of responsibility in, if one thing you're not allowed to say anything, right?
Yeah.
And you feel like there's a part of your brain that says, well, I'm being deprived of sharing my voice, versus when you get to say something and then the person on the other side of you does nothing about it. Now it's a different kind of anger. One, you feel like you never really got started. But if you made your sign and you got up early and you chanted your little heart out and you got a bunch of people together that also feel the same way, and then you did your little rally and everything stays the same, how many more times are you going to be able to do that before you're like, well, this is futile. I got to up my game. I got to do more because they're obviously not listening to me.
Yeah.
You couple that with a generation that's thankfully not part of the No Kings thing, that are not used to not getting their way. And they think that if the cop pulls up and they just cry loud enough that the cop's going to be like, oh, okay, I didn't know you're going to be upset about it. No speeding ticket for you.
Yeah.
So the dangerous part is that keeping that movement to stay non-disruptive and non-violent is a huge order.
Yeah. So if the people participating feel as though it's not doing anything.
Exactly.
Then what happens?
Long as they're cool with just expressing themselves and it not going any further, I am fine. And that's a fantastic way. Everybody knows, like, go ask anybody. Are you happy that Donald Trump is president and Do you think that he's going to try to stay there and for a third or fourth or fifth term? Yes, we heard you. Everything's cool. Noted.
Is that what, like, that's what I say when I say I don't understand. Is that what they are?
This is
thinking?
sort of like in debate, straw man, right? A fallacy of straw man, where basically I'm not going to ask you how you feel. I'm going to tell you or somebody else how you feel and then debate you on what I just created, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing that you have to create in a straw man is what you think it is. And that's usually the first level of debate, to see if what you think it is what it is. If you have a speculative thing, like I think, the Atlas interstellar traveler, right, is a UFO in spaceship. That's the debate. You think it's a comet. I think it's alien invaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now we're going to suspend it and say, I know I'm already right? It's alien invaders. And so the second step is debating the alien invaders. And you're like, hold on, we didn't yet decide, or we don't have evidence, or we can't prove what you think it's the aliens. Why are we going on to the next debate step as if you're right? Okay, so that's what no kings are. The free expression without pushback means that people who say the thing that is unprovable or unknown at that get emboldened, that because you didn't push against it, that somehow you've accepted it as some kind of truth. So then they go to the next level and start debating and getting mad about and expressing themselves in a different direction as if it's true. So if I went home, right, and I started preparing for an alien invasion, would you think that I jumped the shark a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jump the shark?
Jump the shark.
I've never heard that
Really?
expression. Yeah. Jump the shark.
So if I started actually spending real money, real time, real resources for the alien invasion, you're not going to be able to, I'm feeling like I know it, right? And I'm going to go prepare it. So far, I have not treaded in your territory, right? I just did for me, right? I'm going to get prepared and I'm going to believe it. So now all of a sudden I'm like, I see you not preparing for the alien invasion. And I'm like, holy shit. Now I got to go on the street and I got to tell everybody the alien invasion, and I have to get more people to go along with my alien invasion. And I think you're stupid, and I think you're a bigot, and I think that you shouldn't have any real power because you don't see what I see, which is the alien invasion. Now I'm getting into your territory. The more you don't listen to me, the angrier I get. And I want to insist that you see what I see. And if you saw what I see, that you would be preparing for the alien invasion too. That's what no king says.
Yeah, because I would even understand. Let's take a different issue. Let's take tariffs.
Yes.
If there were people marching with signs and chanting and protesting against the tariffs, I'd get it. Whether I agree or not, they could say, listen, we think it's just not good economic sense. We think it's not going to work. We think it's going to cost us money. We think it's not going to do that. Whatever. I get what you're thinking. Whether I agree or not, doesn't matter. I at least get what you think. When they do something like no kings, I don't understand, because I'm like, we so clearly don't have a king. It's clear. He was voted in. He didn't just take power. Like, he's not. Look at all of you protesting. You're not thrown in a dungeon somewhere. Like, I don't understand why they think it's even a thing. To me, it feels like if you dislike this administration, you've got several things you could protest and people would get it, whether they
do you want to go to Conspiracy Theory Boulevard?
Okay.
Let's do that. So we'll take your example of tariffs, right? And that's actually a better protest than the no
I would
kings
understand
thing, right?
that. Yeah.
So we're exploring the void a little bit. So you're asking, there's a they behind everything, right?
They.
The controlling forces that have more, can make more of an impression on some kind of activist project than the people who are actually participating in the project. So let's just say they did the tariffs things. The tariffs is a dangerous thing. It raises prices on consumers. It has a part that puts more money in the government coffers at the expense of consumers, and it helps certain industries, and it hurts everybody's budget because things cost cost more on the short term and may or may not get better on the long term, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm protesting, I'm going to say Trump wants to make your iPhones cost more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we can measure it, and if your iPhones cost more, you can say, see, the iPhones cost more, and then more people will get bought into your movement. It would be a higher effective protest than a unmeasurable he's a king thing. So we got to look in the void of, if I said you were a dictator, right? What is the they really interested in? Because they hooked you into saying he's a dictator. Look, he wants to run for a third term. Well, when will we know that he wants to run for a third term?
Guess when his term's over.
Okay, so if you see him going into campaigning mode towards the end of this term, then they can measure and see. So there's the delay between when I can make the accusation and when you can know for sure, right? If I can then predicate and I could populate some of what an authoritarian that wanted to stay in office would do, I have slow measurables along the way where I can say, okay, if he wanted to be king, what would he do? Like, what would be the ingredients list, the step-by-step? If I wanted to be a king, what would I do?
Make it so we can't vote anymore. He can just take the power.
Okay. Remove voting. Basically, your Bill of Rights, one at a time.
Yeah.
He'd have to kill. So unlikely. So go in the math of what it would take to, okay, they're going to have a no kings rally. They're going to let the cat out of the bag that I want to be a king. So let's stifle freedom of expression so that nobody says this, so they don't get more people on board thinking that I'm going to be it, right? You'd see a lot of no kings rally be shut down, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so the first measurable, is he doing that? Is he not doing that? So everything that I'm going to go over is no, he's not doing that. Is it on the possibilities list? Sure, absolutely. And you can make a list. If he does X, Y, Z, it makes it more likely that he's setting himself up for being a king or having authoritarian rule. But so far, the judges have been keeping in check. The legislature has been doing their thing to keep him in check. And you might not agree that they're going far enough or doing enough, but they're still going through the motions of having conversations about limiting the footprint of the executive branch. Now, if you wanted to limit it even further, then you would pare back the power of government. You would pare back the power of the executive branch. And every executive branch that in my lifetime has expanded their power. So if you can say that Trump is expanding the power of the executive, you can say that Biden expanded the executive and Obama expanded the executive. They're all expanding the executive. So the No Kings rally, you could even get Republicans on board if the deal was hey, he wants to be a king. The executive branch wants to be king-like. If the answer to that equation is limit the government's, the public's exposure to what government can do.
The protest being more about that branch, not a single person.
100%, right? So so if you don't craft it that way, you're not really looking to limit the executive branch. What are the theys? Want these things? What do you want the messaging to be in the No Kings rallies?
They want it to just be hate this guy.
Okay.
This one person.
So if you wanted to foment hatred and anger towards one individual and allow a long off-ramp or a long runway between when you have to stop saying that, when it doesn't become true anymore, what you're doing is you're creating a little bit of a void where a lot of bad things can happen because you've set the timetable what culture is tolerant of, and you've made it beyond the patience of the people. If I say you're a tyrant and I got 7 million people to show up and say you're a tyrant and nobody's seeing that he's a tyrant, there's some idiots, there's some morons, there's some insane people in the group of people who think he's a tyrant. A lot of bad things could happen. So the theys want what has been attempted on a lot of people in the last 6 months here, to have lots of time to foment and to come to fruition. That is my 100% take on it. And you saw they had a deer stand that was set up across the airport in Miami.
No.
Where Trump, when he's in Florida, loads up. Right across the street, there was a deer stand put on a tree that had a direct line of sight to his airplane. So the theys I'm not saying that it's one idiot that set it up and had an idea, or a theys who just start setting the stage for things that to increase its likelihood of happening. But with January 6th was the first hint that we got that if you wanted, to undo Trump by making an insurrection happen, what could I do to make things more potentially, make them more possible? You do certain things like let's not call the National Guard. Let's not set up barriers. Let's not lock the doors. Let's embed FBI agents. So each one of those steps that you do makes the thing that you can't claim and actually do, you make it more likely to happen. So the theys want things to happen that they won't do themselves. So they change the things that they can change to make idiots in society take the bait and do the thing that they wanted to happen, while they can say, oh, that happened. I didn't do it, but man, that's what I think is happening.
Because then they can watch chaos unfold or something bad happen and then blame it.
Look at the idiot. It'll always be it was him. It'll always be the patsy, and it'll always be it. That patsy got so much institutional help to make that super likely. So if you wanted voter fraud to happen, what would you do? You would take all the reasons of voter fraud happen, right? Mm-hmm. And then remove the regulations that make it less likely to voter fraud happen instead of more likely. So we're like, okay, well, how can we jam the ballot box? Okay, if people show up and they have to show ID, that makes it less likely for voter fraud. But if we do no voter ID, right?
Yeah.
But then we skin it in something that sounds virtuous, or if we put it in the mail or put it in a drop box, I'm watching the math go up on the probability of an outcome that benefits you. You can't do it yourself, but it makes it more likely to happen. And you sit back and blame the virtuous skins rather than the things that make it more likely for fraud to happen. We just used 3 examples. The theys and the institutional corruption uses this strategy every single time.
Yeah. And Carter says, easy explanation, TDS. Because I saw multiple videos on social media over the weekend of people trying to interview the protesters, and they say, why are you out here? Well, what is it you're against? Or can you explain what you disagree with? And none of them could even form a sentence. They did not know. Now, granted, those sources are obviously right-leaning sources. They want those people to look dumb. They disagree with this movement. But I can't help then but say, then somebody who is a part of it, who does agree with it, needs to articulate to me what it is they think, regardless of whether or not there's any basis or factual information involved. Is it they believe Trump's going to try to do away with voting and just be all powerful? Do they honestly believe that? And that's why they're doing this? Or does nobody know why they're doing this?
I don't think it's that sophisticated. Everybody wants to be part of the tribe, and the anti-team is just as effective as the pro team, right? So maybe 80% of the people that showed up don't really have a political persuasion, but they want to be included in the group that's very popular, very outspoken, and gets a lot of attention. So you might talk to 80% of the people who are like, oh, something dramatic's going on. Let's go be a part of that. And all I have to do is hold a sign. And then those people get interviewed, and they're not really part of the group that's authentically and legitimately upset about anything, or even knows enough about what they're upset about. They're just part of the tribe that showed up that day to be included because they want to be part of the group rather than outside of the group. So you're asking way too much from 80% of the participants are just very passive, just to want to be in the club.
I'm asking someone to make sense of something that just does not make sense. It's not going to make sense.
It's not going to make sense. Now, an important question is this: if you had 2,500 cities that participated, okay, that is an undertaking. If you wanted to roll out, and this was a petty thought that just went through my head.
Yeah.
If Joe and Kellen wanted to organize some kind of rally, do you know what's required in order to pull something like that off?
All
right. So when you go to a place, you are responsible for the venue, right? You're going to bring a bunch of people, and that the venue has expenses. They have personnel, they have security, they have resources, and they got to be covered. So they charge you and I something to make sure that their employees are covered, the damage that can be done, the liabilities that can happen while people are there. And so they issue a lease or a permit for you to do something. If something bad happens, that they had their liabilities covered. I'm not just going to host you because I like your cause and cover your costs, right? I'm going to make sure that you're going to do your thing and you're going to use my stage to do it. There's going to be cleanup where people are going to leave bottles behind and they're going to accidentally break, some masonry or glass or whatever. And so when the deal is done, right, and all those people leave after their thing, then the venue or the government or the city or the village then has to fix whatever was broken by having a bunch of people in a small space. Now, if you had 2,500 cities, did they all get permits? Did they all cover liabilities and insurance coverages? Did they all have cleanup crews that went up and made the cities whole after their event? And that's a phenomenal amount of money. It's not a small undertaking to cover the liabilities of doing those things. So if 2,500 cities participated and they were backed by a group that organized it, they had to have gotten money from someone. So either one of two hypotheticals, either nobody pulled permits and everybody just showed up at places, and then you just had this extreme cost on local governments to clean up after what you and I would cost us a bundle to be able to pull off, and they got a freebie, which I don't agree with, that they should have some weird version of, being exempt from what we would have to do. Or you had someone funneling a ton of money into this to pull it off. And who are those nameless people? So I want to know who the contributors were, who the organizers were. They got to have names if they're going to have the effect of being able to roll out an insurmountable, protest that spanned the entire country. Who are they? And do they have ties to our enemies? And are they villains? And,
do you think that people in every single area would have, in their local Democratic Party office, whatever, can foot that kind of money? Or
it would have to be organized. Like I said, 2,500 Democrat offices would have had to go pull the permits. And so there would have been record. You would see, hey, this is grassroots. A national small organization told all the Democrat agencies to go pull their permits and get ready for a protest. We'll put it on our website and people show up. That would be really easy to tell us how it came to be. When you don't hear anything like that, who's the organizer? Who's the organizing company of the No Kings rallies? You don't know. Who's the backers, right? You don't know. How'd the logistics go down? Who's the director of operations? Who's the lieutenants that made it happen? You don't know any of this stuff. And when everything lives in that mystery specter, there's usually a reason why you don't know.
Either you did it the wrong way and you just do what you want to do and you say, screw all the rules and proper tactics, which is sort of like being a king, or it was more nefarious and someone's making money off of manipulating you to feel this way.
I believe that the majority of the things we experience come from the conspiracy theory they. The people that are in control, that have the ability to make things happen, and the illusion that all of us have is that it's real and authentic when it's just AstroTurf. Let's just say those rallies. We put a button on it that we banned all bots, people who just showed up for the drama effect or they were paid to be there or whatever. How many people would be there? Almost none, right? And so it would be underwhelming, and then it wouldn't be worthwhile to do. So if they're like, hey, if we could just build in 80% of people just for the spectacle of doing it, then it makes a bigger effect. So the theys control it, where they get this huge audience support. And then it has real leverage when you have 70 million people that are unhappy rather than a handful of people who are displeased and carry a couple signs. It'd be easy to ignore the small group and that's what the they is counting on. If you can put a Civil War army together, right? Step one is to get them grouped up. Step two is to organize them into capabilities. Step three is to arm them metaphorically. And then 4 is call them to action. And so we're in the grouping stage of that. And there are many more stages to happen. And they've got 2.5 years to get that together. So again, Conspiracy Theory Boulevard, for those who are watching, this is my opinion of just looking at the void of what's happening and making a spectacular postulation. And
I still see no one typing in or calling in explaining. If you were at a No Kings rally this weekend, I want to know why. I want you to explain to me what you were protesting. I've got to know. I've got to know what they think. It's probably not true, but at least I'll know where your head's at. Other than, I was just told he was bad, and this is what we do.
Okay, so Trump's trolling these groups pretty hardcore. Did you catch any of those trolls?
I saw, like, I don't know if it was real. Was he posted on social media, him like dressed as a king or something, or saying, "Thanks, you did it. You did it."
Well, that was the last one. That was no kings first. That was his response to that. Is that he acknowledged and was thankful that he wasn't going to have a run for kingship, and he was, still going to be president. But this last one was a bunch of AI generated stuff about him putting on a pilot's uniform and pilot's helmet and jumping into an aircraft that said King Trump on the side.
Oh,
and
I
he
didn't see
flew
that.
over it and dumped massive amounts of manure on the protesters. And it was just like crap just spilling all over the protesters.
Trump shared that?
I don't know, but it
looked like he did.
Yes. But you're familiar with Blue Sky? All right. So Blue Sky is a social media platform like Twitter was, right?
Okay.
Elon takes over Twitter, all the controls that insulated liberals from hearing things that made them sweat. Those people got upset and they created a platform called Blue Sky. So it's basically a liberal echo chamber of, liberals just complaining about Republicans just amongst other liberals. Well, the federal government created Blue Sky accounts for all the departments, right, on Blue Sky, knowing that this would send them into a tizzy, that they'd have to see a government administration that they absolutely despise now sharing stuff on the safe space that was Blue Sky. And I read through some of the comments on Saturday, and it blew my mind. It was so entertaining of how much their heads exploded having those in there. And those departments don't carry a lot of like honor into what they post. Yeah. It's trolling. So I don't know the effect that Trump has had to take, I would consider like the honorable, British dude that wears the perfect 3-piece suit and speaks with a certain dialect and shows they are noble and they are educated. And we made all the departments into 11th graders that love poop humor and trolling.
11th might be generous.
Maybe generous.
7th graders. No.
What should be the disciplines of an honorable department of a government agency and reduced it down to teenage humor. And it blows my mind that that's where we're at right now.
Julie says she has posted twice.
On
Carter said, I think Julie said she was going, and I said, somebody post about what this is about. She said she has. Julie, we didn't see any. Are you talking about in our chat here? Because we haven't seen anything you said. You might have to try again. I don't know. Chicken says Blue Sky is a burn book, so to speak. A burn book. What does that mean?
Burn book.
Chicken, what's a burn book?
I am unfamiliar. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, it is interesting. I keep seeing like news outlets that have, burn book. We're like, destroy this after you read it kind of thing.
No, burn book as in sick burn. Like you write a diary of everybody you hate and why they're stupid and whatever.
So ooh, burn.
Yeah.
Call the burn word. But it is funny that I'm seeing actual news outlets post things that Trump like said in a very obviously joking way. And that's their headline, as though it's real. Trump says this, Trump claims this, Trump wants this. And I'm just like, God, are you reaching? It's so obvious what a reach they're doing now with headlines, with stories, to sort of try to keep people in that mindset. So
this is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Right? And because Trump is changing the rubric on politics. Okay. It's not that the middle 50% voters are going after the most political person, right? if I had a focus group and I was like, I want to be effective at something, and I did the focus group, and the thing that would make me effective is what would ever come out of the focus group, whether I agreed or disagreed with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so let's just say if everybody liked brownies, right? And I learned from the focus group that 50%, I could nail 50% people would be super happy with brownies. And I was like, I don't even really like cooking. I don't even believe in brownies. I think it's below, like I serve caviar and, a charcuterie board and whatever. Brownies thing, that's going to get me. I'm like, okay, I'll get 50% of the people. So I do the thing that gets the people to like me, to vote for me, and whatever. Now, if you don't like brownies, you're like, they're not even catering to me. You're a little pissed that it's not for you.
Yeah.
So I wish that we had a government where people responded to intelligence and merit and whatever. We might live in a society that if somebody gets punched in the mouth, you'll get 5 million people that absolutely love that somebody got punched in the mouth. So if I want to be effective and I'm like, I don't really like punching people in the mouth. I really don't want to punch people in the mouth. Once we go down the punch people in the mouth boulevard, it's hard to come back from that. But look at all the support I'm going to get if I just do the thing that the focus group said that's going to make it popular for me to be in this position. So they took that to the nth level. If you've got, working class white guy that's at the mill with his buddies, and he hears Trump say something that he said yesterday, and it resonates, and then he supports them, do you expect Trump to not cater to the people who are going to show up at the polls? He's not coming after you if you dislike him. Those 70 million people that voted for Kamala, right? He doesn't give two shits about slicing you off and getting you in his camp.
Yeah, especially when Trump now has this great advantage of catering to people that, just like him, have been thrust into this role. For example, when they go after Trump and they say, oh, he's saying this and it's ridiculous, and he's a bigot and a Nazi and a racist, and they go through their long list of their talking points of the names that they call him. And they take something that is in a joking manner and they get all over him for that. And they're doing that to everyday people too. There's a big population, I think, a growing population of people that are leaving the left because they got treated the same way. You couldn't question, you couldn't ask, you couldn't say anything, you couldn't joke, you couldn't do or say anything without pushback and being called a name. And so now all these people relate to Trump being like, all you did is call me names and say ridiculous things about me for so long.
Well,
now I'm just going to joke about it. That was the
miscalculation. So you take a regular straight up politician who takes all of the things that they think are going to ruin them as a politician and never become any of those things. Well, Trump's a mud monster. He will publicly do and say anything that you've accused him of if it's legitimate. Mm-hmm. And their miscalculation is they keep throwing mud at a mud monster, right? And it's not if you take a Mitt Romney and levy a charge at him, not only will he not be able to handle it because he needs pristine in order to, propagate, you throw mud at a mud monster and it just becomes a bigger mud monster. It doesn't shock you into saying that if you ask a supporter what Trump is and what isn't, what he isn't. If you're like, well, Trump lied, and you look at his mud suit and you're like, yeah, you're already accused him of that. I've already made him come to terms with him being quite the liar here, and I'm going to vote for him anyway. And if you say, okay, well, I got this another lie accusation. Do I throw it or I come up with something different because the lie thing isn't working?
Yeah.
But they keep throwing the lie thing. And it's a double-edged sword is because the cost of being a troll and reducing it down to, high school humor is that you give ammunition to the people who will hurl insults at you. Only if they aren't already hurling those insults at you. If they're already doing it, there's no risk.
And because actually it could be an advantage. The more he fires that side up, the crazier they look. Like they don't even get that. The people who are unbothered by Trump's humor are going to remain unbothered. There's a group that are bothered by Trump's humor. They amp themselves up and they look like the crazy ones. Like not only are you not destroying this thing you're trying to hate and tear down, you're giving him ammunition against you.
Yeah.
You look like the nut, not him. Everybody else that is not heated right now sees what's happening. Like, he was joking. That was said in a joking manner. Was it childish? Sure, we'll give you that. We'll give you that. He's the president. Maybe he shouldn't joke so much. I could see that being a point.
But the other, let me give you the psychology of the other 70 million people in your neighborhood, right? You have a bad interaction with someone where they were in your house and they stole something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're like, I'm pissed. Someone stole something from me. You think that now, if you tell anybody else, you tell the other neighbor next to you, hey, I just want to let you know that they're a thief. Don't invite them in their house. They steal things. And that person's like, I really don't care. You're going to get a little angry because you want that other person to be as outraged as you are with it. And when they're not that way, what do you do with that neighbor who didn't react the way that you wanted them to? Now you're not only mad at the thief, but you're mad at everybody else who's oblivious from your perspective that we have a thief in our midst. And why doesn't anybody care?
That means you're not on my side. You must be on the thief's side.
100%. So that's why it escalates. This is very dangerous where we have right now, because not only does the opposition, when they don't get the reaction that they're looking for, are going to ramp it up, then the other side that's escalating, pushing that, that outrageousness, you're going to get to a popping off point. And I'm going to blame you for making it pop off, but I don't expect you to do anything different because that's what's being welcomed into it. And when the people pop off, I'm not going to be surprised, because that is the natural math that happens when people get to a point where they think they have lost influence on what happens. You would expect, if you're an intelligent person, that your message carries the furthest more than anyone else's, right? Mm-hmm. And when you watch idiots' messages carry everywhere and yours goes nowhere, what does it make you want to do as a upstanding, doing the right thing, following the rules person? You get frustrated into saying, if I'm not going to be effective and my truth and information is not going to change anything, F it. I'm going to join the villains here because at least they get to do something.
Julie says, everybody that I spoke to in the Youngstown crowd was very aware of why they were there. They were peaceful, respectful, and exuberant. It was organized by a group of 20-year-olds that are working on a shoestring. They are deeply committed. You should talk to them.
I would love to interview them. Julie, if you can get them in touch with me, I want to know. Again, I'm going to hit it from the angle of how it came to be, how they got, what motivates someone to leave regular and go into an activist position.
Yeah.
Who pays you and where'd that money come from? And did you get permits? And I really want to know if these are, I'll have a lot more respect for it if this is not an AstroTurf. My feeling is there's a lot more AstroTurf in there, and I want to be wrong about that. I really do.
Yeah. And Julie, so we did already say they were peaceful.
Love it.
They didn't destroy property. Like, absolutely. One thing you got to give to the No Kings protesters is it was what protesting should have looked like. It wasn't violent. It didn't damage businesses or property. It didn't get out of hand. It was done very well. I'll give him that. I want to know, you said everybody you talked to was well aware why they were there. Do you have some of those reasons? And I'm not talking about generalities. Like, people will say, well, because we don't agree with what Trump's doing. What was he doing? Like, well, we think he is not following the Constitution. How? Like, Julian, you can tell me too what they said or what you feel. What is specific reasons you think Trump is a king or trying to be a king, warranting a No Kings rally? And I'll let you start typing that out. Carter says Trump is a master at pushing the Dems' buttons.
Mm-hmm.
He is.
That is part of the danger, Carter. It really is, and it's effective. But on the downside, I hope that they take preventative measures. That when this escalates to a point, if your only defense against it is to blame what happens rather than insulate, innocent people from the devastation of what is happening. Like, if your objective is to ramp these people up to the point where they misbehave and destroy cities and whatever, you get to point at them and say, look at all the misbehavior that's over there. Doesn't stop the business owners that are now victims of that misbehavior.
Have you ever seen two kids bickering and fighting and name calling and arguing and trying to burn each other, and eventually one kid gets so angry he hits?
Yes.
Like, that's what this is.
It is.
It is like Trump can hold his own and give it right back to them and make fun of them and do all these things. And it gets to the point where the other kid has nothing else to say, feels like they've been bested, and they ramp it up and they hit.
Yes.
That's what this feels like is happening.
Yes. And if there was some humility in that process, where if you and I were fighting and I think I could take you and you think you could take me, and I hit you real good with a skill set that you didn't know that I had. That was my inner Liam Neeson. Yeah, Liam Neeson.
Have a set of skills.
And I hit you and you're like, I misjudged, right? You got me on this one. Let's shake hands. I don't want to continue this because you're just going to give me an ass whooping. I raise the white flag and I admit defeat, and I'm going to go recalculate and come back to this when I'm better at this. Versus the dumbasses who know they're overmatched and fight anyway and just get smeared into the effing ground. Do we have the ability to admit wrongdoing? No. Do we admit that we're wrong at all? No. So these two stubborn forces are going to go at each other with extreme consequences, and neither which is ever going to jerk the steering wheel to the right. They're just going to slam head into each other. And all of us are there for in like the Colosseum times or ancients, how they entertain oneself. Do you feel like that stuff was more brutal than it needed to be?
Probably.
Warrior fighting a lion or two guys with swords fighting to the death. Had a show, and everybody was there to see someone was going to die, right? And I'm going to watch it for what it represented. This is our Colosseum on a scale that is huge. There's a reason. There's going to be a transition where somebody said, we can get entertainment without the loss of life and the threat of the lion and whatever. Let's dial it back a little bit and not make it such an accepted brutality. But it takes first, when your 10-year-old gets exposure to a lion ripping someone's head off, where you're like, maybe my kid shouldn't be around this. Maybe it's not even healthy for me to be around this. Yeah. Let's stop this and have, dial it back a little bit as the end result.
De-escalate. Chicken says, the most ironic thing about this protest, in my opinion, the government is currently shut down by his opposing party. They call him a king, yet he can't even keep the government open. That's kind of funny.
Who's they, though?
So the Dems say Trump is a king, yet Trump can't even keep a government open. He doesn't have that power.
Oh, I see.
Wouldn't a king be able to just do it?
You and Chicken Conspiracy here are still arguing on the utility of this. And you're giving the opposition a lot of credit for being able to argue this in a fashion that's going to make reasonable, logical sense.
I'm trying to give them the opportunity.
No, you're trying to checkmate them because there is no point and purpose to any of it. And if you take it and,
I don't want to assume that. I am trying, honest to God, this is me trying to be open-minded.
Your brain knows it's stupid. Your brain knows it's stupid.
I do know it's stupid, but I don't know everything. Maybe I missed something. So clearly, thousands and thousands of people are doing it for a reason. I want to know what their reason is.
So your kid's at the park, right? And he's chasing a duck, right?
Aww.
Chasing a duck.
Watch out.
And so you as a parent are going to say, you probably shouldn't chase the duck.
Chase the ducks.
And your kid says, well, why? And you want to, in absolute terms, you're going to say, let's just say you're successful. You're going to have a duck. What is the purpose of having the duck? And you're expensing a lot of energy to catch a thing. And you can't tell me that if you actually get the thing that you're after, why you did that in the first place. You have a duck. What's the utility in having the duck? Are you going to cook it? Are you going to make it your pet? No, you're going to drop it. And it was about the challenge, the pursuit of catching the duck, rather than you need the duck. So that's what you're going to come with in the end is all you got to say is, okay, you're going to protest. And then what? Somebody's going to listen to you. You're going to enact some kind of change. Well, give me the utility. If you catch the duck, what does that look like? What do you get out of it?
Well, Julie says, is it unreasonable to be disgusted by a president that drops shit on his people by labeling Dems as Hamas supporters, terrorists, and immigrants?
It's, again, turnabout is fair play.
I was just going to say, but you label him as a racist Nazi bigot.
Here's the thing. We started off on day one on this show saying both parties are disgusting. Yeah. One was overtly disgusting and one was covertly disgusting. Where we're at right now is you call a bunch of stuff to one side, they call you a bunch of stuff, and Kellen and I are like, they were this all along, guys.
Yeah.
All
this
along.
Entire election is name calling. That's all this is one giant playground with two teams of toddlers name calling. The Republicans get called racists and Nazis, and they say that Dems hate America. And then they say, we don't hate America. Well, we're not racists and Nazis. But all you guys are going to do is just name call, name call, name call. Yeah. You organized protesters in groups by the thousands. You paid money to do this, and it's because he called you a name? Is that really what it is? Mm-hmm. It's because, well, he called people Hamas supporters. You've been name calling for years, you being the left.
Yeah.
You both do it. So again, I ask, what did you think was going to come from this protest?
Yeah, it's really then a discussion is not that if they're both disgusting and say disgusting things, but your guy does it more disgustingly, right? And then
he said a meaner thing.
Exactly. Now we're in a realm of stupidity where when framed like that, there's no argument against it. Really, the only thing is if reasonable people take control back and penalize people for doing the disgusting thing.
Yeah.
But if we're not ready to take disgusting as a principle and take it off of the table, we're not ready to have the conversation if I hate Trump more than I hate Kamala.
I would even understand a protest instead of no kings, put no juveniles. No juveniles in office. Nobody that's going to post funny cartoons on social media. Nobody that's going to do little digs at his opponents. Nobody that's going to joke when he's in front of the podium. Nobody that's going to speak out of term without getting more information. I would understand that. I would understand you say, we want a president that upholds so much dignity and integrity that he doesn't even joke ever. No juveniles in the White House. Got it. I may not agree. I may think you're being hypocritical, but I got it.
Well, in that system, then having integrity and having those disciplines would have to be rewarded versus not.
Yeah.
So if you had Mitt Romney, who I feel in my lifetime was politically, he was the most vanilla toast politician ever. It would be hard to go after him in disgusting ways, right? Because he held himself to standards that are way better than you and I.
Yeah.
And when you watch a person go through that election cycle where that behavior is not rewarded, what do you think is going to happen the next time through? You're going to put your milquetoast guy up there and have him get devastated as if you were a mud monster. You're going to get the mud monster that can at least defend themselves when you start doing disgusting thing against them.
Yeah, like D-Nice says, Kellen, elect Mike Pence. Like if your protest is we want a quiet, subdued person in the White House who isn't going to ruffle feathers, then make that on your sign. The no kings makes no sense because he's clearly not a king. So all you're doing again is name calling with nothing to back it up, which is exactly what you accuse him of doing.
Yeah.
Carter says they tried to put him in jail. They tried to break him and his company, and they tried to kill him twice. Do you think he'd deserve to be a little bit bitter?
And so you saw like all of that list, and we predicted this, maybe 6 or 8 months ago, that the Department of Justice and the weaponization of law against the Comeys and the Brennans and that whole group of people, even digging down to Obama himself, right? If it was fair play, right? When your side was doing it and you cry foul once it's being done on your side, again, the reasonable people are saying, Nobody should have been doing it. You should not use the instruments that are at your power to go after political enemies. But once someone breaks the seal and does that, you can't expect that somebody's going to hit the brake before it applies to you, and all of a sudden it doesn't matter. So let's just say in 3.5 years, is it now 3.25 years between now and when a potential Democrat president is elected. Now, do you think if the die is cast that part of your campaign is just put people in prison, do you think that's an end that we should ramp up, where the government is all about just indicting the people who disagree with you, or the law makes pretty much everybody that serves in a public capacity breaking some kind of rule or law at any given moment? So literally everybody that you see on TV, if the Department of Justice goes after you, it's just a matter of time. So everybody that's in that wheelhouse, the list of 20 names of people who went after Trump, knowing that the Department of Justice could pull something on them that makes them serve time or makes them flip on somebody else. And you don't think that this is going to be chaos for the next 3 years, plus the next Democrat who's going to do the same damn thing.
Yeah.
Right. This is our government now.
And again, it makes it more and more pointless, useless. How many times have you seen somebody try to weaponize, whether it was the judicial system, the courts, what have you, and it went nowhere and it was futile, like all the freaking time? Just like, let's all choose to overlook every time the media is caught lying. You're caught lying. You were penalized in a court of law. You owe somebody money, whether it's Trump, an administration to either side, whatever story. What do? Do you turn that news organization off? Most of us don't. We just keep eating up whatever they tell us was true, knowing it's been proven they've lied. It becomes pointless. It's not only not right to do and a dangerous game to play, but what you're doing now is making it another point that will not matter. It used to hold weight when you called somebody a racist. That used to be a big, whoa, stop everything. Is somebody racist? Let's look into this. We don't want that. Now it's, why don't you call me a big doo-doo head? Like, it means nothing because you made it mean nothing, because you used it in situations it did not apply. And I think we're going to get to that level when it comes to, oh, well, why would you vote for him? He got accused or he was indicted or he was arrested for, or he was whatever. It's like, oh, that means nothing. Okay. Everybody here could be now, like, what is that? Then what are they left with? So it's like, so your name called and people got sick of it. You accused them of things that were found to be untrue, but you kept accusing them. You're going to try to lock him up under false charges, and now nobody thinks any of the charges are real or worth our time looking at. So they're like, one by one, what's left? What's going to be left?
Did you think the apocalypse did you picture it as a kid in Sunday school when the devil was just going to have so much influence in your world? Did you like picture in your head that him dancing around and doing it himself? Or did you see that the masses are just going to do that bidding? Like, I remember hearing those words and now it makes sense. But at the time I thought it was going to happen differently.
Yeah. You almost thought it was going to be this very obvious evil happening. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh no, it's far more discreet and human nature.
Slow moving.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can go back and say, okay, when did the devil start making his entrance to the scene? And it's like, was it today? Oh no, this shit has been being set up probably since 2,000 years ago.
Oh, Julie says, yes, it about the Constitution and the rule of law, the concentration of power and money in the executive branch, the corruption, crypto, the 400 million jet, etc., the retribution campaign, the implementation of Project 2025, which is 68% complete. Don't ask me to type out Project 2025. Oh, we'd be here all day. The deployment of a military in U.S. cities that are walking all over people's rights and creating chaos. I could go on. Are you willing to accept these new norms of the President of the United States?
And I'm going to not blame this president, but the entire executive branch for having these as even possibilities that any president could have pulled these levers. And just because you don't like them doesn't mean that you can just focus on one guy. I would say Julie and I, at this point, and this would be really helpful to Republicans to do, if especially libertarian bent of the Republican Party, is to say, okay, it's evident that the executive branch has too much power. Let's sew it up and restrict what the executive branch can even do. And let's let bygones be bygones. Republicans didn't like it when Biden and Obama could just ignore immigration law and just let tons of voters into these states, right? That was the recklessness of not following the law. And we don't like it when Trump is pushing on the gray areas of the law and only having to be pushed back by the court system and the judicial system. And so, but you can exact the principle saying, oh, Joe was right all along. Well, the executive branch does have too much power. Let's curtail it. And anybody who runs for office that wants to make the government smaller is who I'm going to vote for. And then watch all the dominoes fall back into place where the executives going to be like, you can't limit me. And the legislators are like, oh, they want to put term limits on me. And the judiciary like, oh, they're going to impeach liberal activist judges. And we watch the government be put on notice that the people are like, done sick of the influence that you have in our lives. And then the libertarians are like, let's do this. Let's go.
Did you think it was an overreach of power to require people to take a vaccine?
Absolutely.
Do you think it was an overreach of power to require people to shut down their businesses?
Absolutely.
And do you think it was an overreach of power to not allow any protest for any of those things? You're not allowed to gather in groups of more than 6. So where's the outrage for that overreach of power? To me, this is not about overreach of power.
Let's do it. Let's make a couple of our own. This is the Kicking Puppy Dogs rapping session. Ready? All that's required is you take a tyrannical, overreaching, like reality, and you have to wrap it in so that's something that feels virtuous, right? And so COVID needed protecting your neighbor and something that felt good that you were not doing it for you. This is not, you're gonna make the sacrifice, but it's for the old people. It's for the babies. Don't you care about your neighbor? So you have to do that. So let's take something that's overreaching, but rather than saying it's just an order of justice, and wrap it in a puppy dog. So let's pick one. Pick an overreaching that you feel that Trump has gone beyond where he should.
That Trump has gone beyond where he should.
Yes.
Overreaching.
And I'll give you one example so you can follow the theme.
Yeah, go ahead.
Enforcing immigration law. We're going to arrest criminals, even misdemeanor criminals. We're going to arrest people who aren't supposed to be in this country. Right?
Okay.
So the opposition says you're breaking up families and this is the soccer coach and taxpayers. So they did the wrapping in something that's virtuous. Trump says, because it's the law, right?
Yeah.
It's the law, right? That's not a puppy dog.
It's a criminal.
So take something that we can wrap that in and remarket it as something that, isn't just, too vanilla, too legalese, too justice sounding.
Too logical.
Yeah.
It's got to have an emotional appeal.
That's what they got to get better at. And then the Julies of the world, right, would take it and make it uniform. It would be parity with we're going to break all of health insurance for the Affordable Care Act because we're going to give you something free. That's an easy sell. The Democrats have it easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say any of the spending. Hey, we are in an insane amount of debt in this country. We've got Americans sleeping on the street. We don't have enough money to supply needed things. We're going to scale back on some that we're giving to other countries for the time being. I can't believe you want orphans in this country to die. I can't believe the United States isn't willing to help refugees. I can't believe we're not going to fund much needed resources for these poor countries. What are you, heartless? But we don't have the money to do that. That doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter.
It's worse than that because we grew up around when 9/11 and we got really familiar with what terrorists do, right? So you have a terrorist and he's carrying weaponry and he puts his base in a hospital. So now you have a dilemma, right?
Mm.
I want to get rid of the terrorist because he's going to do bad things. But if I shoot the terrorist, I kill the hospital and the sick people that are in the beds. So that psychology is to holding you hostage between what you can't do and what you want to do. And if you do the thing, it's bad. And if you don't do the thing, it's bad. So you can't win, right?
Yep.
So USAID is a good example. So let's take something like aiding food and refugees in a foreign country and wrap some corruption. So if you want to get the corruption, you got to take out the hospital. So what are you going to do? Do it. I dare you, right?
Yeah.
And so I had this great argument about USAID, and I don't disagree that there were people that were hurt because USAID ceased in some of the operations. But I don't blame the people who came and took out the hospital. I take the people who weave the hospital and the terrorists together. They are the real evils, right? That made it so that it is a dilemma. If it's like, let's have USAID and then I'll do anything except for feed people, you would watch the funding dry up in there because they can't give it to political movements and green energies and dumping off to people's campaigns and grifts that politicians make loads of money off of. But I blame the grifters rather than the Elon Musk that come in there. Like, do you think he should have to wear that as a badge for the rest of his life, that he's the person responsible for somebody in the Congo, a whole village starving out because U.S. aid was removed and now a bunch of people died? Are those deaths on him or the people who wrapped it into...
The people who wrapped it. The people who wrapped it. When they say, I'm not going to vote on something we need unless you put this with it, that could be detrimental. That's the enemy, not the person who says, wait, you just wrapped it in something detrimental. I can't vote for that. Oh, well, clearly then you hate this too. And I'm sorry. That's the culture of the Dems right now. That's what they're doing right now. You don't like something, you're a bad person. Doesn't matter why you don't like it. You don't want to help somebody, you're terrible. Doesn't matter why you don't want to help them.
So why did we take the angle on we don't negotiate with terrorists?
We don't negotiate with terrorists because they keep us. Yeah.
We don't negotiate because you basically reward the behavior, and if it's effective, they keep doing it.
They know they can get what they want.
Their deal is terrorism. It's not. They're only using the hospital to ensure that they can keep doing the terrorism, right?
Yeah.
If you're like, all right, Abdullah, whatever, gets on the 13th floor, and you blast him anyway, the next terrorist is like, oh, the hospital thing, not keep safe. That's a terrible impression. But if it doesn't work, then they stop taking hospitals hostage.
Yeah.
Just like if you want people to be fed, the terrorists stop making the food hostage. Again, you'll watch this theme just show itself in the reason that these strategies are used is because they're terribly effective because good people won't take a bead on the hospital because they care about the people who are going to be collateral damage. But then the terrorism becomes stronger. The terrorist takes more hostages. And then instead of 100,000 people dying, you get millions of people dying when everybody is completely, dependent on a corrupt dependency organization. So anyway, that was soapbox stuff there.
Julie's losing it. She says, oh, believe me, I don't believe Trump is pulling the strings. He has a team of evildoers making this happen. Wait a minute. But you said he's the king. You're protesting him being a king. He's got all this power. He's got to rein it in. And then you just said he's not the one pulling the strings. There's a whole other team of evildoers. So which is it? Then she says, OMG, Kellen, we were in the midst of an unprecedented pandemic. Nobody knew what to do except what made sense at the time.
Okay, this is my favorite discussion because you got to really suspend your beliefs at this point, right?
Yeah.
So we're looking at the void again. Okay, so do you believe that election fraud happens, ballot fraud happens?
Probably.
Okay. And so it's just a normal part of the election process. Now, what if every time fraud happened, it always happened in the exact same direction, right? Like the beneficiaries of the fraud we're always those people, like every time. In your brain, you would think that sometimes the fraud happened if it was just a normal element of election, that sometimes it would be go in this direction and sometimes it would be over here. And it's hard to even put a bead on it because it's so randomized. It's just a nature of ballots that sometimes fraud happens and it goes in every single direction, right? If a COVID thing happened right now, do you expect that it would go down exactly the way that it did before?
Right now?
From the standpoint, would pharmaceuticals get wealthy? Would they use the institutions to be able to close things in the same way to make the pharmaceuticals wealthy? Would they ensure power for politicians by using the closures to ensure even more power? If the thumbprint of a pandemic is that all of the branches of government get more powerful and all of the pharmaceuticals get more prosperous at the expense of everyone else, if that's the thumbprint, what happens if a pandemic happened and it did a reversal where government was shunted and they just couldn't figure out how to have any more power or make any more money? The pharmaceuticals were on death's doorstep, couldn't figure out how to make money because everything. But why is it will always happen that happens and the same people benefit and the same people are at the cost end of it?
Yeah. Like, how many times does it have to happen before you realize the similarities? And it is interesting when she says we were in an unprecedented pandemic, as though, well, this was a special situation. We needed this to happen. But it's overreach in a situation of an outbreak of violence and danger and political unrest and people's businesses getting destroyed and crime in an area. You send help, and that's an overreach. Like, your emergency was more important than this emergency is what that feels like.
Well, it's the doubling back on it's not. Liberals do not have a principle. You know what a principle is? It is something that doesn't change based on how you feel about it. It's a rule. There's no asterisks. There's no exemptions. A principle is something that always is, no matter what.
Wrong is wrong and right is right, no matter who's
Liberals
doing
have things they like to say, and they can't wait to make a special example or a special exception for their preferred group of choice, right? So they like it when, for instance, voting needs to be exactingly fair and just. But when there's a group that doesn't have a lot of power, then sometimes weighing it, sometimes double backing on the principle is okay if there's some kind of means to an end there, right?
Yeah.
Nobody would cry over, we want females to be regarded exactly as males, right? And then when you say those words, it's like, yeah, that's a just and fair thing. But sometimes we're allowed to have a little bit of preference and distance from being completely fair. We're going to make these little asterisks sometimes when I feel a certain way.
Yeah. All races should be equal, have the same amount of opportunities. The color of your skin should not mean you are treated differently.
Absolute.
But if we could sort of benefit some people, give them a leg up, maybe a little shove in a better direction by making it important, the color of their skin, and then, yeah.
Yeah, but the only way, like I said, when you reward the good behavior and punish the bad behavior, you remove the incentive to do the wrong thing, even for the right reasons. You'll be very happy if you cheat and your person wins, right? Mm-hmm. And you'll feel really mad as if the other party cheated and their candidate wins, right? And you will put them in different boxes.
Yeah. I could see someone saying, hi, Colin. Yes. Thanks for watching, Colin. If somebody were saying overreach is overreach, you can't overreach by forcing vaccines onto people and shutting down their businesses and taking away their power to protest. And you can't overreach by sending in the National Guard and policing people in their own towns. If you think that's an overreach, then say this is an overreach. And then we have an overreach discussion.
And we have an overreach principle.
Yes. But no, it's this overreach is okay, that overreach is not okay. Because I agree with this person and I don't like this person.
Yeah. Principles light, right? And
Yeah.
and that is really principles are freaking hard, right? In some cases, especially if you're an emotional being lacking logic completely, when you say that theft, right, is punishable by death, right? And you're like, yeah, it's a little bit of an overdoing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to steal. And you're like, yeah, I can do that. I picture the guys that are stealing from banks and whatever. And then you're like, oh, a little kid was hungry and he went up to the farmer's market stand and he stole an apple. Hold up. Wait a minute. That one is definitionally theft. But I don't want that one to die.
It's charity.
I don't want that one to die.
Yeah.
So that one should be, as soon as you carve out and make the exempt, then you can't have a rule or principle because you've got so many people on the exempt list. You might as well not even have the freaking rule.
Yeah. Or at the very least, acknowledge a gray area if there is one. If it's, whoa, listen, this was feeding somebody who could die and we need to help. Fine. Then is there a gray area and sending some more help into an area that they believe is overrun by crime and violence? Then admit that. Then say, all right, there's gray areas to both things and we need to look closer into this. But kind of like you've said before, there's never everybody wants to do like statements instead of could somebody be this? Could this be this? It's always you're that. This is this. This is that. And that's like
I'm glad they do it. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because really, I will always know when I'm right when somebody goes to the absolute. Because you don't have a fellow curious person that's digging for truth. You have somebody who is carrying the line that they were handed to them. So when everybody says, making things, I understand math, I understand sciences. And when you make an absolute claim, like if I said 200 million people voted and there is no election fraud, right? The math part of my brain says, I have done a lot of things. And once you get over like 50 of something, there are anomalies, right? There are things that happen that you can't prove to me that you can control and keep those out of the deal. So if you take a poll as a margin of error, so does voting, so does vaccines, so does Tylenol. All of these things have margins of error. And when I'm talking to someone in science, we are trying to mitigate the margins of error. So if there are people that are trying to make voting happen more, right? Then when you do something, either it increases the margin of error or decreases it. So if I said, I've got a sugar cube in my hand, right? And you and I are going to eat this sugar cube. And I can guarantee you, absolute terms, that we are not going to die. You eat your sugar cube, I eat my sugar cube, neither of us die. And now I'm like, I am so certain I'm going to do this with 100 people and then 1,000 people. And now I'm going to do it to 100 million people. We're all going to eat our sugar cubes. Nobody's going to die. Because on my small scale, we didn't die when we did it. But do you think that in 100 million people, if I give them a sugar cube, there's going to be somebody that dies from that sugar cube?
Probably.
Okay. And what is the origin of that curiosity is why in a room that I was so certain that when we had 100 people that took the sugar cube, it looked like it was a very unlikely thing that a sugar cube would kill somebody. But when we got to a scale of 100 million, why did it kill those dudes?
Yeah. And that's exactly the point that we get into when there are arguments or discussions about things like vaccines and medication.
Correct.
The people can say all day long, this has been tested and studied and it's safe. Tested and studied how? Well, 5 people took it and they were all right. So millions can take it and they'll be all right. Like that's a pretty far jump. And I'm being, I'm not saying literally there's a test of 5 people, but maybe there was. But that's what we're saying. We being the people that are looking into more testing and asking more questions are, if the study was only this and we are giving it to this, don't you think we've got a few more questions and tests to run and variables to look at? And what if all of a sudden we never realized this variable can affect something because these small people didn't have that variable? Now they do. Oh my gosh, could that be a game changer?
Well, back to our sugar cube analysis. So now we want to know why some people died from it. And when there was a couple of people went out there that maybe it threw their blood sugar and they had a heart attack, or they were just, their bodies were too frail in order to take the amount of sugar that was in our cube. And then there might be some people on the other side of the equation that they would have died that day, but because of that sugar cube, they were actually made more healthy by that sugar cube, just because of the law of averages on the group of people that we threw things out. Now, so I can study this. If I had a bunch of people in academics that they had nothing better to do anyway, they can study the effects on large scale implementation of my sugar cube experiment and tell me what the plus and minus, who will be helped and whatever. When I say, hey, here's a sugar cube, and 1 in 1 million people died because they took this, and actually 1 in 10 million people actually got healthier because of taking the sugar cube, you have a really good chance of being in the middle that weren't made worse and weren't made better. But here's your information. Take it if you want to. Don't take it if you don't want to. Now you're informed. Mm-hmm. But if I thought giving you the information would sway your willingness to take the thing, right? And I didn't want you to have that, because what if you're a scared person, and once you hear that 2 people died from it, you're going to be like, I'm not effing taking that thing. What if I'm one of the 2? I'm an unlucky person. If I take this, I'm going to die. And then you don't take it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if your policy is your goal is you want everybody to take it. If I'm a pharmaceutical, what would everybody having to take it mean for my bottom line? Would I like everybody to take it, or some people to take it, or a majority of the people take it? Right?
Yeah.
You would guess that they're on that side. They've got a bias that they agree everybody should take this.
Yeah.
So then you get to the people who get to decide whether or not this is let's just say the vaccine saves 100,000 people, or we'll say 1 million people, make it round numbers, saves 1 million people. You have to give it to everybody, and 100 million people are saved from it. They will not die because of the disease. And immediately, 100,000 people will have complications from it, and they'll die because they actually took the injection a couple days later. And then on the long term, you're going to lose 500,000 more people over the course of 10 years that got injured because of it. So on the aggregate, you probably have a coin flip here. You have the people who will die from it. You have the people who will have long-term effects from it and have complications lower in life. What do? Do you make everybody take it and be willing to take the casualties and the unintended consequences of having it to save the million? Are they more important? Or let the 1 million people die and then rescue the 5 million people over the next 20 years who won't immediately die? It's not, because it's not going to be binary.
Yeah.
You're going to have bad, a little bit better than bad, a little bit better than that bad, until you don't get to 100% no unintended consequences.
Yeah. But it's when you start demonizing the person that's questioning it at all is where, to me, it looks a little more nefarious. Like,
well, that's why I say it always goes to fraud in that direction.
Yeah.
Right. So you could have gone the other way, where let's use people, like we're going to have a bunch of people take this, and it's going to come out in waves, and have them report back so we can give better numbers to the next wave of people so that they can even make a better informed decision. So maybe you get it super wrong on first revision and you lose 10,000 people and you got it wrong, and then you recalculate, and then you do it again and you give better information. You could have had an experimental group of 100 million people reported appropriately, right? Mm-hmm. Everything that was happening, everything from deaths and injuries from this thing, until you got to the later edges of these waves, and almost been 100% certain. You didn't have a group of testing on 1,000 people. You had 100 million people that tested this out, and you have pristine data that came back from that. Well, again, you go back to who doesn't want pristine data. Well, the people who in pharmaceuticals don't want it pristine. They got to get it to everybody, regardless if they cared or not. You got government that forced it on everybody to take the power and control. The only thing we didn't get at it is the data that we could have gotten if the pharmaceuticals would have been muzzled, and the politicians who could have passed on the power grab long enough, we would have known way more about this than we would. And the next time it happens, we would have forged out the noble version of this instead of the money hungry and power hungry version of this.
Yep. Julie says he is the president. He has surrounded himself with people that use him as the useful idiot to turn us into an authoritarian country while he goes golfing. Okay.
Okay. So the structure of government, everything from the president down to his cabinet, down to the lieutenants to those cabinet, and all the way around. Okay. Do we know what the job of the president is? Like in Biden's deal, Biden was mentally gone, and all of those cabinet and all of those lieutenants of those cabinets made everything happen, even without a sentient president, right? Mm-hmm. So you could say that, stooge or not, that a lot of the mechanics of government isn't the president doing that,
right?
Signing things and saying things publicly and putting a goal list together for all of your cabinet and those lieutenants might be that role. So the useful idiot thing would be obviously true for every administration in your entire lifetime. So I don't take this. Trump's the first person to let cabinet officials do cabinet official things.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always said the president himself is sort of like the figurehead. Like, yes, you get to have the praise when things go well, and you're to blame if things don't.
Right.
You're just the one person that we are putting this on.
Correct.
When there are other people helping to run this show.
Right.
Which again makes no sense then when you have an entire protest about the one person and what he is doing.
Yeah, I do an experiment one time. Like after you put an administration in office, take the figurehead and lock them in a room and watch everything be on autopilot, going exactly the way that they were. Because they share with us during the campaign trail everything they're going to do, what's on their playlist. They write all of that stuff up. I bet you we could get through an entire, if we pick them up after, we'll say 100 days, plopped them in a room, I bet you government would function identically if he were in the room for the rest of the term.
I saw a guy one time, I don't even know who he is. He's a scholar at some university, was saying every time there is an election, we pick a president, he comes into office, and then the men in blue suits come in and tell him, here's how it's really going to happen.
Yep.
It's just a figurehead. Julie says a representative democracy is a work in progress and always has been. Never perfect, but until now, I don't believe any leaders have wanted to eliminate it.
And it's a representative republic.
Yeah.
Not a democracy.
Not a democracy. Kellen and Joe, here's my principle. I am not going to be around long enough to suffer from the effects of Trumpism, but I do care that you and your kids get to live with the same freedom that I was afforded. I want the best of the best to continue to work on a more perfect government.
And do you think there's a potential that it might work out better than you're suspicious of? And after Trump, you might have prosperity in the economy and prosperity with trade and prosperity with peace and all of that. I'm going to say I'm watching the math happen in all the departments that would happen. And I think a lot of things that were not realized are going to take 5-6 years to come to fruition. But if they do, I think in some cases, this country is going to thank Trump historically.
Julie says not a chance.
Not a chance. Remember, absolutes. What did I say?
You said possible.
I say I think.
I think.
My opinion
we could.
Of, there's a possibility of.
Julie says not a chance.
So I always know who's the captured one that I'm talking to, that have already decided, and there's no amount of data that you can give them to ever come off of that. And they're entitled to that.
What exactly is Trumpism? Like people with TDS, I get. Trumpism would include what?
I'll take my top 5 of what it means to me.
Okay.
Number 1, the Make America Great. Taking all the ways that America, when during the Industrial Revolution and when it was at at the height, the pinnacle of everything that America stood for, we've deviated from that, taking it back to that era where we had buildings being built and we have economies that were being innovated in, and
strong
all
families
of that across the board. Farmers were farming for us. Our manufacturing was manufacturing for us. We were selling to the world. And then it flipped, and then we became this consumer where we were just selling to other people. We didn't care who was working behind it. We would rather buy it from Japan than we were in the United States. We didn't care if we had industries that were building our buildings. We can get it from everywhere.
Ease and convenience win over American made and supporting local.
Getting back to a point where we had the ability, without any interference from any other people, we could make it on our own. We made our own stuff. We only went outside after we made sure the people inside were made whole. We respected the civilian and gave benefits to people who were citizens of the United States. And then number two, that's on that side of things. And then number two would the apparatus of government of having controls over the other side. Should the government be afraid of the people, or should the people be afraid of the government? And making America great again, where government was trying to operate over its skis, but the people were stronger than it and knew that they can levy hell on the government if they overstep their bounds. It got to a point where the deep state and the corruption and just the size of government got to the point where I can squash any little piece of population that I wanted. And now people were just subservient to what the government machine was. So the second level is drain the swamp. And when it gets to be a cliche, people forget what the swamp even is.
Yeah.
Swamp creatures, when they go away, you don't know who they're going to be because they were the swamp. A Comey was a swamp, right? A Brennan was a swamp. And there are a bunch of other people that got fired in the last rounds were swamp people, and you never knew their name. And as long as they're going out the exit door, then I know that maybe 50% of them were swamp creatures and 50% of them were enablers to swamp creatures. But as long as we have an exodus of people who were there, I'm 100% certain, and I'm using an absolute, 100% certain that swamp creatures were there. Right?
Yeah.
Don't know who they were. I'm not sure about that, but they were there. So if you took all creatures out of the swamp, regardless if they were the swamp creatures we were talking about, if they're all gone, I'm going to pick somebody from the outside and I'm going to put them there. And I am certain that the new person is not one of the swamp creatures that I was afraid of. And I know 100% certain if I got rid of all of them, that the swamp creatures would be gone.
And what's so interesting is in your setup of what it means to make America great or bring back the good things about that era. You never said anything about race, one group of people being better than another, hating anyone, judging anyone. So how then did the idea of make America great again become a racist, Nazi, bigoted group? Is it just because the other side can't win? If we push those ideals that they can't fight against something because that makes sense. So they're like, better resort to name calling and make people fear you. It's the only way we're going to get elected.
It's really hard to rally against make America great again, right? It's the same thing with make America healthy again. Like, really, who's on the other side of make America healthy again?
Yeah.
So if you're crafting pushback on, you can't say like, okay, well, I can't say we really love fat people. We love people with disease. You can't be pro any of those things. It's universally accepted that being healthy is better. Being great is better, right? So I'm like, well, the only thing I can do, and this is if you ever took debate in high school or college, that really all you have to do is you have to go for the integrity of the person that's speaking those things. I have to convince you, but what you mean by great isn't really great. You don't really mean that. It's straw man, right? It's pushing on where I'm going to take your integrity away from you so that when you say the thing that's universally accepted, I don't want people to join you and say, yeah, people should be healthy and feel good and live a long life and take their vitamins and have long, healthy, enjoyable lives. Which one are you going to hit on?
Yeah.
Which one are you going to hit on the pledge? You can't. So I have to say, well, Kellen doesn't really mean that. She's just a shill for XYZ. So don't listen to her. She doesn't mean what she says she means. It's the only play.
It is. There's so much like emotional warfare in politics. It's ridiculous that more people don't see it. Like I always say, I am cured of Trump derangement syndrome. I'll admit I've had it. I was the typical hate Trump because of his personality, because of his attitude, because he seems mean, he seems arrogant. I don't like the guy. I want to punch him in the face. That led so far into like, I could drive by someone's house, and if they had a bunch of like American flags up in a big old pickup truck, I'm like, you hillbilly Trump supporter piece of crap. And my family is full of veterans. And that was my first reaction of a home with American flags. And I went, that makes no sense. Why am I hating on this? And then, of course, you see like, I'd see like the Let's Go Brandon. And, you just solidify to me that you're a hateful bigot, you know? And then it got to the point where I'm like, I don't even understand what I'm mad about. I don't even understand what I actually hate. And I started to see people that I respected following and voting for and supporting Donald Trump. And I went, I gotta know.
Can I warn Julie on this one? Because those words scare me more than any that Julie's ever said before.
What?
She said, I hope I'm around long enough to say I told you so. And I have to give dire warning on the to say I told you so crowd. Listen, when you get heavily invested, what I know about people is people do not ever admit that they were wrong or ever want to be wrong. And you are breathlessly hoping that you were right, even if it's in the direction of something that is evil. Okay?
You didn't say, I hope for our children's sake you're right. It was, I hope I see you get to be wrong.
Exactly. So if, let's just say you had a group of people who thought vaccines were terrible and they were going to kill a bunch of people, and you had a bunch of people who said, no, they're just completely safe and effective. And then you see a 36-year-old running back that's in their prime of their life. They die. And the first thing that pops in your brain, instead of saying, oh, tragically, a young life is extinguished early, you're like, was he vaccinated? And if that is sort of like what constitutes going into the evil, that's a constituent of trying to get confirmation that everybody should have listened to you and you were right, by then looking out in the public, and they're not human beings that you hope they're okay and you can have empathy for. They're a pawn in you being right or wrong. And we start in especially the last couple of arguments that we've had socially within all of our culture, is when we have a school shooting. What was their politics? Somebody died unexpectedly. What was their vaccination status? It's a very dangerous game that we are playing, where we commoditized our relationship with people, whether or not we believe or agree or disagree with them. And we made them elements of our psychological warfare against the other tribe. And that's what does us in. I can guarantee it.
And evil one-on-one, and the biggest, best way to divide people and make the evil win is dehumanize 100%. People. We are dehumanizing each other, that someone could be murdered in public and we argue over whether or not he deserved it because of what he said. It's like, all you have to do is see somebody on Facebook that said something and you instantly gut punch them with something horrific. People aren't people anymore. We dehumanize, and we've talked on here before. We've said
it's an actual strategy, by the way.
It is. Absolutely, it is.
Have you read? I get Trump's version of it better. The Art of War.
I've not read it. I've heard of it.
Dude, if you want to know what's happening right now, if you get in the mind of a wartime strategist, and everything that's effective in war, you have in modern culture right now, and I'm a cynic only because the structure and foundation of what we're doing right now cannot be naturally occurring. It is orchestrated by people who want perpetual war. And we are falling victim for it. We'll use your example of dehumanizing. All right. In a couple quotes throughout history, like if you use an example of over the weekend, 100 Palestinians were executed or were killed by a bombing, right? Those words were Palestinians, 100 of them. It fits in your brain in a certain way. If I said John Smith, who was a father, worked at a bakery and had, whatever, had a home in Palestine, was killed by a bombing run, you put that in your brain differently than when you have the statistic of there was 100 people versus there was John Smith. You've humanized by giving him a name, a story, who he was connected with. That's a person just like you and I. Mm-hmm. If you're like, have an abortion because it's not a little girl who will be Sally when she grows up and maybe have a chance to go to college, just a zygote, just a bunch of cells. We take what we can identify as another person like us and whether or not we'd want to be murdered or not and say, I don't want Palestinians to be bombed and be dead. So if I want you to disagree, I keep it dehumanizing. If I want you to disagree and really hate it, I give them a name and give them a story and give them a potential. And then all of a sudden, you can't really agree with it anymore.
Do you think in general we are becoming a new breed of psychopaths?
Oh, yeah. Not in becoming. We are.
We are
psychopaths.
We've become psychotic.
Mm-hmm.
We are becoming void of empathy and emotion and relating to humans. And we talked the one day on here, the difference between fighting with someone online and walking up to them in person, cutting someone off in your car and yelling something out the window, but pulling into the gas station together and both of you getting out.
Exactly.
Two totally different situations, and I bet you two totally different behaviors when you were actually face-to-face with someone.
Yep.
And
when we use the ability to even have personal interactions and relationships with people, which that will happen in this current psychosis, we're going to not be able to be around. Right now, I would say 50% of the people you're not going to be able to have a conversation with. And then it's going to slice off and you're going to be put into your own camp where you cannot talk outside of it because it comes to throwing fists again. And then the weapons and then the murder and deaths, totally justifiable. If they're on the other team and they happen to die, right? All we got to do is dehumanize them and they were a Trump supporter. And all we take is humanity away from them. They weren't a person who has a family and just disagreed with you. They were the devil and they were a Nazi and they were Hitler and they could be ended like Charlie Kirk.
And not only have we successfully begun to dehumanize, we've also successfully begun to lower our ability to hold a thought for longer than 7 seconds, to consider other things. I realize now, so social media has reels. Instead of watching a long video, you get a 7-second reel because I ain't got time to sit here and watch this whole thing. I want you to tell me in 5 seconds or less what this is about. We now have ads within the reel, which means they will now insert an ad because even though I only have 5 seconds of your time, I'm hijacking that as well. And I'm going to make you even less capable of watching this.
I do have to point out the phenomenon. You are disagreeing with it. You are mocking society.
No, yep. And I'm part of it. I'm part of it. I'm telling you I'm part of it. I'm telling you I've had Trump derangement syndrome. I've started to notice things. I've started to question things.
Those things are past tense. I'm talking
I know.
Present tense.
Oh, yeah. I even realized when Charlie Kirk was killed, because I was a Charlie Kirk fan and I was pretty shaken by it and just the whole idea of someone being murdered and on the internet and how graphic that is. Everybody I was friends with on social media that posted anything painting Charlie Kirk in a negative light, I unfriended. Unfriend. Get away from me. I don't even want to know you. And then you calmed down and I went, that's the same person I've known for years.
Mm-hmm. Caught up in a moment, just like you.
Yep. Caught up in a moment. I don't agree with them. Maybe they will one day disagree with what they shared too. But this is another thing we're trying to do. And me too. I've now started adding these people back because I went, oh my God, this is what is happening. Doesn't matter how long I've known you, how well we've gotten along, any respect that was there before. I see something on the internet, cut you out. And we're doing that to each other. And it's just like, oh, I can.
And what you mentioned there, and the reason why I thought that Julie's the, I told you so, because things are framed a certain way, you're waiting for that. If you had a person that you thought and you threw, those insults at, and I really don't have much evidence for it, they're like in ambush position, waiting for you to do that thing, right? Mm-hmm. So that I can capitalize. Say, see, I freaking told you so. Where what you're doing is you're saying, all right, well, I had the realization that I got caught up in an emotional moment and I said something. Are you going to let someone off the hook when they were your confirmation bias that basically now solidified what you felt about them, to have a resolution where, oh no, they said that, but they were just caught? How likely are you to lay down cover fire for them when that was your moment that outed them as the thing you wanted them to be? 0% chance. So that's why the war ensues between regular people, because we put them in a camp that they don't even really deserve to be. And we hold them to the same anger standards that we do the people above them who do deserve our anger.
Yeah. Julie says, when all of this Trump corruption comes to light, and I believe it will, I will say I told you so.
Okay, deal. And there'll be no, I mean, I could write in an envelope what corruption there is, exactly what I know has been happening, used by the current occupant, and will be used again until somebody decides to take that power away.
Yeah.
Period.
Carter says, I wonder if the hostages that were just released think Trump is corrupt. Chicken says, irrational at first, but after you have cooled.
Yep.
My papa used to say, think about it for the night, then respond. I try my best to do that.
Yeah, we do not do that right now. It is basically gut reactions. And I did start doing this rule. Like I've had some confrontations with people, and what I'll do is I'll write out my thoughts, but I won't send it right away. And I will give myself a cool down. How many times do you think I came back to that, what I wanted to respond, and now I don't care about it anymore? I'm not heated into it anymore. And I'm like, that would have been really bad. Almost every there, I bet you 5% of the time I send it because I still feel that way. Most of the time I delete it and never send it.
Or what I'll do is I'll stop, take a minute, cool off. I still then feel that way, but I can calmly phrase it differently. I still don't agree with what happened. I am still upset by it. I still think this is a wrong that needs corrected. But if I had worded it that way, it would have been a bigger problem. And if I go about solving it this way, now we can solve the problem.
And this is regular. That is natural, by the way. That is natural human interactions. Do you know what the problem is? Is that the world got faster and human beings stayed the same. And so this stuff is not, it would have happened normally, but we have all the tools to make our responses and actions to it be known in the moment. And it's too fast for how our brains are supposed to then filter things down and exchange it. So let's just say your gut reaction to someone doing you wrong is to kill somebody. Do you think that's a natural reaction? It's a natural reaction, right? Should you act on killing someone right away? Or can you say, hey, that was a very primitive response, that my brain was in a defensive posture where it needed to end a threat. That was a threat. It was a threat. And now my better senses, I escalated it up to a higher capacity in my brain. It got to think through it and say, well, no, it's a disproportionate response to something. The person that wronged me doesn't deserve to die. That was, it was stupid. I'm glad I didn't act on it in a moment. Well, you take all of that time away from your brain to process things the way it was always processed since the beginning of humanity. And you get a lot of badness that comes out in that spontaneity.
Yeah. We need to bring back journaling and diaries for every thought in someone's head.
Yes.
We have taken social media platforms, and now every thought in your head can instantaneously be shot to the world.
Yep.
And it's like, maybe journal first.
All right. Maybe so here's again Joe's crushing theory. So if you just make an observation, you have to decide whether or not, now that you've observed something, if you can change it, you change it. Mm-hmm. If you can capitalize on it, you capitalize on it. So your youngins, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that having the impulsiveness and the emotionalism and all of that is an attribute that leads to success or detriment?
Say that again?
Do you think having impulsiveness and emotionalism is an attribute that can help you or an attribute that can hurt you?
Probably most likely hurt.
Okay. So if I'm a war strategist, I'm looking at my enemy to see what they're doing. And I don't care what they're doing. I have to know what they're doing. And if I want to crush them, I have to use whatever their advantage is or what they perceive as their advantage against them. So if you're doing X, then I'm going to know that you're doing X, and I'm going to use that to my advantage to crush you using the thing that was your advantage. Every wartime strategist uses this deal. So if you're teaching your youngins to say, hey, you're living in a world that is going to have a gut reaction impulsively with little thought. Majority of the people that you're dealing with are going to be that way. So what I want you to do is I want you to know how to stay calm and be deliberate and take your time. And use that extra time that are going to using the high capacities of your brain to crush the people who are not doing. Make it so that you write the world through arbitrage, right? You create your own advantage in doing the right thing. And through crushing the people who don't, you disincentivize doing the wrong thing. And since people generally don't like being crushed, you then change things by dominating the things that are doing the wrong side. Right? That's just the natural law of things. So teach your youngins to crush people who are impulsive and have the attention spans of them. Yes.
Do you find, do you have like a person or a group of people that you feel like I can pop off in the moment?
Yes.
And they know that's not me.
Yep.
They know that's Heated Joe
100%.
and I will calm down eventually. I feel like you're becoming one of those for me. I hope you know that. And you may not like it, but there's times where I've been like, Joe, not about that person, about something else. But I was like, send. And then I went, I hope he doesn't think I'm a total psycho.
No, I changed your name in my phone to Grasshopper.
Grasshopper?
Grasshopper.
Little grasshopper.
Take the stone from my hand.
You are angry, grasshopper.
Take the stone from
Calm
my
down
hand.
and come back later. And then I go, okay. I may have overreacted slightly.
I think everybody needs that person. And I think there's a lot of wasted wisdom in old people right now because not enough young people sit down with people that lived at a slower period. And rather than, mocking them because they don't understand technology and they sit on the couch too long and they experience the world a little bit slower, get curious about that and find out if they have a perspective that you're missing because you're going at 1,000 miles an hour. One of the programs that used to be here local was called SCORE, right? And basically it was people who were in business that retired. So they were alive when I wasn't, or wasn't even doing business, sit down for lunch meetings and they would talk to you, right? First couple of them, I was like, this is freaking useless. I was hoping this retired person would tell me strategies that I could go out there and use today. You know what it ended up being? Completely philosophical, right? Instead of saying like, I've got filing cabinets that I put papers in, my brain's like, why don't you use a database? Why don't you just use email? I was disagreeing because they weren't doing the same thing as I am, but somehow I needed to teach them about digital rather than trying to figure out why their way was different and what unique characteristics it had, things that I may not have considered. And as long as I was in teaching moment, I learned nothing. But the minute that I was like, I have an opportunity to sit in front of someone that had 50 years of experience, that had nothing but success and changed people's lives and changed the economy as a whole. Am I going to teach this guy something? Or do I have something to learn here? And if I got over myself, took ego out of it, I actually learned a lot. So meet with old people. Go to Perkins, go to Arby's, sit down with some old people. And if you can get them not talking politics, you can learn something.
McDonald's morning crew.
Yeah. Be careful though, because there's some still irate old people too. Don't get caught up with that crowd.
Don't get caught up with that crowd. Thank you, Carter. Carter loves our shows.
I'm here every day because I respect your point of view. I want to understand why others think the way they think. I want to know how you feel, but I know what I feel and I believe. And I understand that, Julian. That's why I love the conversations. And in fact, we took on an angle on this show that the most important thing is the dialogue exchange. The most important, not agreement, not consistency in the arguments. We don't need consensus. We don't need somebody to be right and wrong. It's a deal where we can spout off, argue, say our piece, and move on without. I have no hatred for Julie. In fact, she's on my top 10 list of favorite people on daily,
And what's so interesting too, like, honest to God, this show wouldn't be what it is without Julie.
For sure.
It wouldn't. Like, we don't want to sit around and just all agree with each other.
Yeah, that's no fun.
Like, we need an open conversation and we need a viewpoint to other things and other sides. And so, Julie, you are a huge benefit to us in this show.
If there is a hill to die on for me, it will be open dialogue forever. If somebody walked through the door right now and said, I want to say my piece, my job would not be to dispel them and turn them away and make them look like an idiot. It would be to have a healthy, understanding dialogue.
Yeah.
There are very few villains out there. There really are. Even people that have made mistakes, been in the headlines for doing something. There's history and there's humanity in every one of those stories. Right?
Absolutely.
And I want to know what makes people tick just like Julie does, because I can add to my arsenal through the experiences and dialogue with other people. It's so important to hear people out.
Thank you, Chicken. He says, yes, wonderful show. I'm glad I found it. I'm originally from the area and have a rental property there, so it's nice to feel connected.
Well, thank you, Chicken. Appreciate it. All right, we're going to get out of here for today. Tune back in for tomorrow. There's a lot of stuff that the MLO Bros want to say. I am sure of it. So have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow